Hi there, everyone, and best wishes. We're on lesson 92. Miracles are seen in light and strength are one. Remember, it's talking about the strength of our will and what we want, what we insist. This is my desire. This is what I actually want to have happen. That's where the strength is. And then it says the idea for the day is the extension of the previous one, which should be obvious from the title. It says we don't think of light in terms of strength and darkness in terms of weakness. And that, it says, is because once again we think seeing has to do with eyes. Now remember, it's already told us that eyes do nothing but make images. They don't really see what's there. They make images to avoid seeing the truth that's right there. And it's also, of course, tied up with your brain because we think that the function of eyeballs and seeing is directly related to the brain, which at this illusory life level, they are related. And then it says, because you think that your eyes are really seeing something objective, you can put these little pieces of glass in front of your eyes and that this is going to make things be different. Magical beliefs. That's what we're involved with, where we think something in the world causes something else. Remember how we talked about that earlier? And then, I love this, you also believe the body's brain can think. In other words, that thoughts originate somehow in the brain. If you had any idea what a ridiculous idea that is, it would be like thinking you personally light up the sun with a match and you personally hold the world in your hands and operate it one way or the other. Well, we're really clear that we don't do that, so it would be good if we could see it's just as ridiculous to think that the brain originates thoughts and that the eyes see anything objective, because they don't. They're all tied up with illusions. And then it makes it very clear. It is God's strength in you. It's the love in you that is the light in which you can really see the truth and not just make images, which is what eyes do. It's His mind or love's mind with which your real thoughts, which are always thoughts that relate to lovingness, oneness, compassion, generosity, and so on. In other words, that's what real thoughts are about and how they come in the first place. It says His strength denies your weakness, which in other words says your weakness is not a fact. Your pretend-like weakness, because you're not really weak, derives from seeing through the body's eyes. And then it gets very poetic here, and it peers about in darkness to behold the likeness of itself, the pathetic little likeness of the pathetic little things that we think we've turned ourselves into. The small, the weak, the sickly, the dying, those in need, the helpless, the afraid, the sad and poor, the starving and the joyless. These are seen through eyes that can't see. In other words, we can't see the truth. These are the images that we make and cannot bless and do not love. That's the horrible world we create with lack of love. There's a place in the teacher's manual where it says, once you have glimpsed the face of Christ, you will not look back with longing on a slaughterhouse. That's what the author of this course thinks about the messy world that we've so-called created for ourselves. It says strength, or that desire to love, overlooks these things by seeing past appearances. Now, by past, it's not literal like you're going by the side of. It means, and here we get into the problem of language not serving us, it's more than. It's like love or strength and light are the container. They're the ground in which everything happens. See, language doesn't work at all. That's why practice and not understanding is called for here. And it says it unites with light. Strength and light are all the same thing. It sees itself. It sees the strength. It calls on all those words that we talked about yesterday, all those brilliant, real, actual truths about ourselves. It brings the light in which yourself, capital S, the reality, the experience of oneness, which is what the self is, the self with a capital S. Now, it says, in the dark, where all you're doing is messing around with these images that you've made up out of your lack of love, you're going to perceive a self that's not there. In other words, we're going to make up bodies which are not the truth about us. The strength is the truth of us. Light and love and presence is the truth of us. Weakness, which remember is this body image, is a falsely worshipped idol, and it's adored, so that strength will go away and darkness rule. We have preferred the darkness. Even though love has created light, and it's right here, we've preferred the darkness out of our absolute terrible misconception about virtually everything. Once again, I refer to its statement in the beginning that says everything you believe is upside down and backwards, so everything is just the opposite from what you think it is in terms of the truth. So strength comes from truth and is involved with light, and that's been given us. Weakness reflects the ego. It's the ego that is the author, so to speak, of all this sense of separation. It's sick, and it looks on sickness, because everything, remember, is a mirror, even in our insanity. Truth is the savior. It only wills for happiness and peace for everyone, not just for the ones you like, not just for part of your tribe, whatever your tribe is. We're still pretty tribal in the way we approach things. It gives strength to everyone who asks in limitless supply, because lack in one would be lack in all, so it gives all light to all things that everyone may see, everyone may benefit. This is, after all, a teaching in non-duality, that we are all aspects and expressions of one united self. Strength is shared. So we want to all unite in this purpose of the practice of forgiveness and love. Now, this is where, as it gets into these seemingly more abstract ideas, you do want to remember that this is about practicing and not understanding. The understanding will be given you as we do this practice. And then it says weakness, which again is referring to this ego construct that we've made up that does the peering about in darkness, is not interested in forgiveness or love. It sees everything as something separate from itself. It's in the all about me and my story mode, and it's not into sharing that particular sense of self. It's like, I am a contained self, and now my job is its care and maintenance. So it judges and it condemns. It does not love. It may want allies, but it doesn't really want friends. In other words, it wants characters in its drama to support it. That's very different from wanting to join with. It hides itself, and it dreams that it's strong and conquering and a victor over these limitations that it's thrown out here. It's pretending that it's growing to enormous size. And we've seen really large egos and know what that looks like. It says this gets to be very dark. It fears and it attacks and it hates itself. And darkness covers everything it sees, leaving it dreams as fearful as itself. No miracles here, because miracles are about love and egos are about hatred and sense of separation from everything. Light and strength want to see because they are one. The light of strength isn't the light that we see now, kind of the daylight of normal light. It doesn't flicker and go out. It doesn't turn from night to day and night to day. The light of strength is constant, sure as love, and only wants to give itself away because it can only give to itself. Remember, the more we give, the more we have. So strength and light are united in us as us. And what we're trying to do is to experience that more and more and more. So with all of our practice, that's our goal. So that the peace that comes when we realize we are not some little separate self, that we are something indescribably magnificent and unified. Unity is the key. Then life will be ever so different, even while we're here in our so-called corporal state. So it says, please, twice today, just quiet down for 20 minutes to try to allow our awareness to be brought unto ourselves. We don't have to make this self that we really are. We just have to want the truth about us to be true. Its strength will be the light, and sight will be given us. So then leave the dark for a little while. Leave this world of so-called everything being a separate thing, and just practice wanting and desiring for the truth to be true. Unity is what's actually happening. Love is actually what's going on, despite the hideous images that a hateful mind directs the eyes to see. So, repeat this as often as possible. Recognize we are being introduced to real seeing and away from the darkness that the physical eyes have shown us, since that's what they're designed to do, and get to the place where only the awareness of love is what we see. Have a great practice. These lessons get to be very intense, but that's the whole idea. I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Goodbye.